Welcome to WebStylePress. If you are new here, consider subscribing and hit bell icon. In this video, I will show you from where do I start a CSS document. Usually, a CSS document starts with a CSS reset. In case of Tutor Bootstrap, you do not need CSS reset. Otherwise, do use CSS reset. You are looking at SCSS document and CSS is generated as an output from this file. I use SCSS because I can define variables for repetitive values, and those values will not throw output in final CSS output. In case of SCSS or SAS, managing media queries in SCSS or SAS is easy than in CSS file. Also, SCSS or SAS gives me CSS prefixes for cross-browser compatibility. So SCSS or SAS do heavy lifting for me in background. That is why I use SCSS or SAS, and I prefer SAS over CSS file. Okay, so first of all, you can import font at the top in this CSS file or SCSS file, but I advise you to not do that. It will make your website slower. Link external font files or CSS files in HTML document at the end to load website quickly. Link font files here before closing body tag below the fold. This was a quick SEO tip for you. Then define variables at the top, like font families, colors, more stuff. Then I am using a basic CSS reset technique that is very important. Use it. It will remove margins and paddings from every element, and border box value for box sizing property is important for responsive design. It will include the padding and border in an element's total width and height. It is very useful. Then I have CSS for HTML and body. In HTML and body, I use height 100% in case I need full height elements at webpage. We can define font size in percentage, and then in body, when I use 1.6 rem, that will mean 16 pixels font size. I use overflow-x hidden to force elements to not go out of viewport. In body, I define color and font family for regular text at page. You can see this is the variable that contains this value, and then this variable is being used here. This is how we can use variables in SAS or SCSS file. Headings have different and prominent appearance and fonts, so here I define font family for all heading tags. I usually apply some font family at buttons as at headings. For buttons and anchor elements, I use transition for hover effects. I am applying text decoration none at anchor elements here. For image, cancel image border that some web browsers apply by default. These are my clear classes that are alternatives to BR tags. These have specific heights that I can use depending on need. Clear, clear 1, clear 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, and then here clear both, and font size and line height 0, and then for clear height 0, then for clear 2 height 2 pixels, clear 3 height 3 pixels, and then clear 10 height 10 pixels, clear 30 height 30 pixels, clear 80 height 80 pixels, and then this is form. For form, we need its 100% width, so I make it block. I am clearing buttons outline here, and next I am cancelling background image and text shadow that Tutor Bootstrap adds. Basically, I am stripping down button styles so that I can use my custom styles here. and then I have some general classes that I can use at my elements, kind of helper classes for no padding and no margin, for only no padding, for only no margin, no dash margin, for relative position, absolute for position absolute, fixed for position fixed, overflow hidden for overflow hidden, overflow visible for overflow visible, display inline block for inline block, for full width 100%, display block and clear both. In case you want to use your own grid, you can use CSS Flexbox. Here is my Flexbox classes to create grid, and I use flex wrap, align items and justify content as needed in CSS down the line, but not here. This selector is special. It selects all classes starting with cold dash and applies 20 pixels margin to bottom of each column. So this is my starter CSS file or SCSS or SAS file. I start CSS document like this. It has got its CSS equivalent as well. So this is SAS or SCSS file, and if you want to see the CSS file, its equivalent, here it is. And from start you see the difference, right? Root element, and then these are the variables, and then WebKit box sizing and Mozilla Moz box sizing. These are CSS prefixes, these are. And when my SCSS gets converted into CSS, my code editor applies these prefixes automatically to make CSS compatible with other web browsers. I have a setting for it in Visual Studio Code. From this gear icon, click here and click at the settings. Then click at this icon, open settings, JSON file. And as you can see, this live says compile.settings.autoprefix greater than 1% and last two versions. This is the prefix setting. And extension that converts SCSS into CSS is live says compiler. I will show you that as well. You can click here. Live says compiler. You can install this extension. It will convert SCSS or SAS file automatically into CSS file. But you will have to click this watch SAS link or button at the bottom of Visual Studio Code. So CSS prefixes, Visual Studio Code automatically gives me CSS prefixes for browser compatibility. Then here you can see the variables in CSS. You can also call these custom CSS properties. You can also use these like this at root element. You can also choose to use custom properties like this, or you can scope these properties like this. These variables will exist in CSS. You can declare custom CSS properties in root element in HTML, or you can scope these for any inner element as well. And then this is the declaration of variable with dash dash double dash, and then this is how you call that variable, var, with var CSS function. This is the main difference, and then prefixes that you see in CSS. Rest all is same. In SCSS or SAS there is parent-child hierarchy. You can place child element CSS inside a block of CSS code, but in CSS no such thing. Like this is HTML and then body, and then this is for HTML, but in SAS you can do it like this. This is HTML, and then inside this HTML block this is the body. but here these are separate, so you can do that in a CSS file or SAS file. So there you go. I will share this template on my GitHub if you want to copy, and I do not write it again and again all the time from start. I have its template in Visual Studio Code. I have its snippet, like I created like this. I create a new document and then I type snip dash and then CSS new, and this is my CSS template. I have a tutorial on Visual Studio Code snippets. I will link that in description. You see these extra properties, these are CSS prefixes that I do not have to type or write or remember if I am using SAS or SCSS file. That is why SCSS or SAS is preferable. So that's that. Give this video a like, subscribe to channel and press bell icon. Stay tuned and I will see you in the next video.